Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by
Infinity of Memphis has moved to Germantown Road, just half-mile north of Wolf Chase Galleria, and is proud to support WKNO for its quality broadcasting and service to our community. Quality and service? No wonder Infinity of Memphis feels at home on WKNO.
the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Today on a very special Sports Files, we look at the pros and cons of AAU basketball, and do so with a panel of AAU and high school round ball head coaches. Do high school basketball coaches have issues with the AAU game? What about AAU coaches? Do they believe their brand of competition is superior to that of the preps? Can AAU and high school round ball coexist, or will it eventually affect players and their allegiance? Today on Sports Files, we take a look at AAU basketball, which stands for Amateur Athletic Union, a nonprofit organization. It has been equally praised and criticized. Players are given maximum exposure, but some feel they are exploited. NBA legend Kobe Bryant calls AAU basketball horrible, citing the lack of properly taught fundamentals. On the flip side, young men and women who may not normally get an opportunity aside from high school get a chance to travel and showcase themselves for college opportunities. And while Kobe Bryant, who grew up in Italy and honed his craft on foreign soil, may have issues, many other big names in the association have lent their name, time, and finances to the cause. In Memphis alone, there are teams affiliated with Penny Hardaway, Mike Miller, and Thaddeus Young. Today, I'm joined by three men who truly care about their players. They care about their lives on and off the court. They are three coaches who are well respected and are not afraid to tell it like it is. Representing the high school game is longtime Christian Brothers High School boys coach Bubba Luckett, who recently completed his 32nd year coaching. This season, he led the brothers to an undefeated regular season and a trip to the state championship game, where CBHS fell a little short in the title game. Bubba is also a former University of Memphis Tiger. Eric Cowboy Robinson is about as well known and respected an AAU coach as they come. He is currently the head coach of Team Magic Elite and has helped over 300 kids go to college on their talents. His team won the prestigious Adidas Super 64 Premier event in Las Vegas in 2009 and was runner-up in 2010. And filling out our roster today is the youngest panelist, Norton Hurd, who is rising up the AAU ranks with his ability to coach and evaluate talent. Norton heads up Team Thad as its general manager and also coaches the 17 and under team. He also teamed with Thaddeus, the Brooklyn Nets standout, to create Team Thad and give countless young men a chance to grow as players and young adults. Today, the world of AAU basketball, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's next on Sports Files. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time. As coaches, whether it be AAU or high school, in your case, Bubba, is the primary goal as coaches to win a championship or to develop the young players? Cowboy, let me start with you.
Well, our first goal is to develop a basketball player into a student athlete. Try to help them get different variety ways to get into college.
Norton?
Well, with Team Thad, our first goal is to develop the player and develop them as young men and use basketball to teach them life skills also.
Bubba?
I think that's true in high school basketball too. You want to develop the overall young man, and certainly as an extracurricular in basketball, championships are always something you talk about, but I think it's most important that you develop them as young men and teach them teamwork and hope that you're fortunate enough to have a team good enough to do some good things.
Bubba, players that are prospering at the high school level, is that because of AAU basketball, in spite of AAU basketball, or does playing AAU and then playing high school ball have no effect?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think years ago when AAU basketball started, it was primarily for the elite players. And I think now AAU, there are guys that can't make a high school basketball team that are on an AAU team. That's where it's a little different, I think, today. I've had guys that were cut, and Dad calls and says, how could he not make your team? He's on an AAU team. So being an AAU player is not, I don't think, what it was way back when it was originally designed for the elite type player. I think elite teams make sure they have the elite players, but I think just saying you play on AAU basketball does not mean you're a special player anymore.
Cowboy, you're shaking your head yes. You would agree with Bubba?
I agree with it. I agree with it a lot. I mean, these days, I mean, you have the shoe company is basically taking over the game. With me, I'm Adidas. Then you got Coach Hurd there, Under Armour, Team Penny, Nike, and then you have M33M. That's their own, basically Reebok, I think. And if you're not playing for one of those 4 programs, you basically not considered an elite basketball kid. But nowadays you have parents, if you don't make either one of these 4 teams, you got some parents or brothers that's gonna start their own program. So in the summer, and you call that AAU. So you got kids that get cut from high school and from one of those top 4 programs, and they're playing AAU basketball.
So Norton, in a sense, the way it sounds is that AAU over the years has now been watered down a bit. Not with Team Thad, not with the programs we're talking about here, but if some are just starting the programs just to have AAU ball, then it's not just the elite players that Bubba alluded to earlier.
Well, you're right. Like, I agree with both of them. One thing about basketball is what Cowboy and Coach Bubba said. It's no one right answer to certain questions. Like, Cowboy can tell you some scenarios, and Bubba can tell you, and I can tell you, like, I feel like AAU is still for the elite players. It's just that, like Cowboy said, if you're not on one of the elite teams, then you're not one of the elite players. You can get cut from a high school team and make an AAU team. But the elite players mostly start for their high school teams.
Kobe Bryant, one of the greats of all time, has come out and he's criticized AAU. He basically called it stupid. And then we'll get into specifics of what he said about fundamentals. When you hear a great, Norton, like Kobe Bryant saying something like that, negative to something that you've helped develop, create with Team Thad and coach, what's your reaction?
Like I just said, everyone has their own opinion. I don't agree with Kobe Bryant. Just because it's Kobe Bryant, you take Michael Jordan, he done made some of the, worst draft picks in history. And, you look at me and Cowboy, and you can't just say, because Kobe said it is right, because we put a lot of time into these kids. I'm talking about, like, I do more for these kids than I do some of my own family members. I'm talking about develop them in the morning before school, after school, being there for them. I see what Kobe mean, but I think it's about the individual. If you're a bad individual, no matter if you're a high school coach or AAU coach, you're a bad individual.
So it's a bad rap as a collective organization, AAU, coming from Kobe. But Kobe also alludes to the fact that he grew up in Italy. Mm-hmm. His father played there. He says the European players are fundamentally sound. They're taught as young players. They develop those fundamentals. And we've gotten away from fundamentals with the youth here in this country. Bubba?
I think AAU programs are much like high school programs from the standpoint of you've got some good high school coaches that run a really solid program. You've got some good AAU programs that do the right thing. And you've got bad of each. And I think there is some criticism from high school coaches when a kid leaves his program and goes off into a bad AAU program and comes back and generates bad habits. And then I've heard coaches say many times, he comes back and I've got to reteach him, how to play. Those are the bad AAU programs. I think the general opinion today, and this is not the case years ago, the college coaches recruited a player from his high school team. I think there's a realization now where the kids get exposure through AAU now. The college coaches want to know a lot about the kid from the high school coaches, but the AAU, because of the opportunity to see a large number of dynamite players in one venue multiple times in the summer during the open recruiting period and all that, is what allows AAU to provide the exposure that these players need. And to come to a high school basketball game and watch one kid, he better be a heck of a player, because that's an expensive trip. I remember when we were playing Briarcrest a few years back, and Roy Williams played on national TV that day, and we played Briarcrest in the championship of the region that night, and he came to the game. And he couldn't even talk to him. He just stood outside the locker room and wanted to be seen. He made one trip for one kid that night. Now, that was his way of saying, this is how bad I want you. I left the game in Chapel Hill at 2 o'clock. I came here for a 7 o'clock or whatever time we played that night, and I'm here to show my presence in front of you. He ended up going to North Carolina, but I think the big draw now for AAU is play for us, and the exposure you're going to get over the summer is far greater than what you might get during the high school season.
Some of the criticism I see with AAU basketball when I've read up on this and listened to people is that there could be a false sense of how good you are. You go out to, let's say, Las Vegas or Chicago, and you guys travel all over the place, and you have a player who has a big tournament. All of a sudden, his stock rises. He maybe goes up against another elite player, and now there's this thought that he is at that level, when reality he isn't. He had a good weekend. And then all of a sudden, he gets to a college program. He doesn't play up to par. He's not the guy they thought he was. Have you seen that before? And what's the worry that could happen, that players get a little bit too big self-value of themselves from one outing?
Well, I mean, first of all, we're not doing our job if we don't educate the kids and the parents on what level these kids need to play on. Mm-hmm. Like they say, you got high D1, you got mid-major, you got mid-major plus, you got low major, and some of these kids get stuck on the North Carolinas, the University of Memphis, you know, the Kentuckys. We have to let them know, that's good they want you, but you might not flourish at that program.
You have to be honest with them.
Yeah, we have to be honest with them. We have to tell the truth. And if we don't tell them the truth, we're not doing our job.
Norton, when you are telling a player the truth, he's thinking Kentucky, you're telling him no disrespect to Murray State, Southeast Missouri State, and then now the parents or part of the inner circle get involved. I'm sure that's a problem sometimes for you guys, Bubba, for you at the high school level, with families getting involved. What do you say when you try to educate these players on really where they are with their game and where they belong?
Well, some people accept it, but some people don't. Like, we do our best as coaches to tell them, but if they have an inner circle who, every time I'm telling the kid that want to go to Kentucky, he should go to Murray State, but every time he walk in his household, they tell him, boy, you Kentucky, then, it makes it difficult for me to teach him to do his job. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to help him, but I feel like if we helping the kid to get to where he's going, I also feel like this. It's not me, Cowboy, or Bubba fault. We get a kid to a high major and he don't succeed.
Right.
The college coach got to do something when he get there. I mean, we have did a great job of putting him to the point where Kentucky want him or Memphis want him. But sometimes I think we get too much fault. If a kid do great at a college, they say the college coach is great. But if
we get all the fault.
Yeah, but if they do bad, he didn't learn this at his AAU program. He didn't learn this at his high school. So I think it's a pattern of both. One, sometimes the college coaches got to come on when we left off, and two, they got to make the right decisions.
How do you deal with it, Bubba, with parents saying, look, my kid should play,
yeah.
he needs to go here?
I don't know what these guys think about this, but I'm not a huge fan of the 5-star, 4-star, 3-star deal. That's a thing of the labels on kids, and I can remember, and I won't name names, but we've had a couple of Memphians come out of here, and they were good young players, but by their senior year they kind of tapped out a little bit, and Memphis they were highly regarded, but they did not meet their expectations as players, and one of them was recognized as a top player from the 7th grade on, and he didn't pan out, and he probably thinks he's a failure. Hey, in the 7th grade, I was recognized as the 3rd best player in the country at my age level, and I'm just a backup on a Division I team. I'm not a big fan of that, and I think sometimes it hurts coaches in their recruiting when they have these highly ranked recruiting classes and they don't pan out. you know, I just I'm not a big fan of that. But I just
You don't like labels.
well, I
You
don't like labels. I think, you know, and going back to something that was mentioned earlier, he talked about a guy having a really good weekend in AAU basketball, and suddenly that's happened in the state tournaments in high
Sure.
school basketball
Sure.
too. We had a player one year that was a low, mid-major that we won the state championship that year, and all of a sudden he's got 4 Division I offers and went down to Ole Miss and started. So it could work that way too.
Is there a concern with burnout? When I was a kid, Bubba, Cowboy, you're a little young, Norton. You probably don't remember the times where you played baseball during baseball season, football, basketball, basketball. Now it's 24/7, AAU and high school. Is there concern about burning out, and now kids are going to make a choice between the two as opposed to playing both?
Sometimes, like I said, you have to be honest with these kids. I mean, like nowadays you got kids that's 2 sport kids. At the end of the day, I don't care what they say. I don't care what their college coach tell you. You are not going to play 2 sports in college. The Deion Sanders days are over with. I just don't see it. I don't know how my peers feel about it, but I just don't see it anymore.
No, I think you're right. But is there a concern with at 12, 13, AAU starts at what age? 7. That by the time they turn around for high school, they're burned out and they don't even want to play. They don't like the game anymore. Is that possible?
If they got love for it, I don't feel it's possible. The first question you asked, would they have to pick between AAU and high school? That would never have to happen because the seasons are at 2 different times.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And another thing I want to say is the AAU coach and the high school coach is for the kids. I think everything will work out. Like Coach Bubba said something today that a lot of high school coaches won't admit. Most kids go pick up, if they don't make it to the state and have a good showing, most kids go pick up 90-some% of their offers in AAU. That's not knocking the high school coach. That's like Bubba said, financially, it's almost like going to get a meal. If you got $10, do you want to go get a combo or you want to go to a buffet? Mm-hmm. AAU is like the buffet. You can go watch 10 Division I players on one court on your off season. These college coaches also have, you know, while high school going on, they got their season. So like Coach Bubba said, you got to be really special for Roy Williams, or he really wants you to come pop in. But AAU tournaments, I know Cowboy just saw them 2 weeks ago. I did. Roy Williams, Bill Self, they all in there because it's other players they recruiting. They might not be recruiting nobody off me and Cowboy team, but we might play against somebody they recruiting, or we might be playing the game after and they still, you know, it's just so much more opportunity as far as the college level.
You know the difference between basketball and we'll say football and baseball. Basketball is a fun sport. You get immediate gratification playing basketball. In football, in the off season, you're not out playing games or anything. And you can ask football players this: football is fun to play, but not to practice. Right. Baseball, right. That's a game that if you're pitching or catching, and there's not a lot of action in baseball. Now I'm not cutting baseball, but basketball, I think. I would be more concerned with the injuries because of the extended period of time with the kid than I would burnout. Kids, I've got football coaches and basketball coaches, football coaches and baseball coaches will tell me, if there's a basketball in a gym, the kids are in there playing. No matter what sport they play, they'll pick up a basketball and start playing. Not so much other things. So I think that they're more likely, because of the extended amount of time they're playing, maybe to be injured, then I'm bored with it now. I don't want to play anymore.
Norton hit it on the head, and you guys both alluded to it, all three of you, that it's for these young men, and in the case of young ladies as well playing college ball, to put them in the right position, to teach them the fundamentals, and to understand where they stand. So there's no falsehood. But in that sense, AAU and high school, while you play basketball, it's 2 different types of basketball. I mean, it's 2 different. Even though sometimes it'll overlap, a lot of travel, especially in AAU. High school, it depends. If it's a school with money, certainly they'll travel a lot more. Some schools don't have the money to do so. Is there anything negative or anything you would change with AAU coming from a high school standpoint, Bubba?
I think I'm a little bit different than a public school coach that might not have the ability to provide them with nice shoes, take them on trips. We go on trips, not as many as the AAU teams
Right.
do.
But there are schools that don't.
But there are schools that don't, and that's a huge benefit for those guys that go to schools that don't have that opportunity during the school year, that they get to do these nice things. And to them, it may feel like a downer to come back and play high school ball. But we're fortunate enough to be able to do those things at our school, and it doesn't affect our kids quite as much as it might a kid that comes up through a team that doesn't have the financial means to do that, a school.
Cowboy, do you have anything that you would change about high school basketball, or anything that bothers you about kids playing ball, the way they're played, the way they play, the way they're coached?
I mean, probably about 5 years ago, I think I did a coaches clinic at Christian Brothers University, and what I would like to see is more coaches coming to clinics. We all get together so we can, if everybody got answers or questions, so we can all work together. Like I said, I learned. I'm still learning in the game. I love the game. I think I know the game, but I'm still learning. And when I get around guys like Coach Luckett or Coach Calipari, Jermaine Johnson, guys, I'm learning the game, and I feel like we all need to come together and just work with each other on teaching the game of basketball.
Norton, why do so many former players or current players get involved with AAU? Team Thad, Mike Miller, M33M, Penny Hardaway, just to name a few. Why do they want that association? Why does Thad want this association?
Well, I think all three of those guys you named love helping kids. So that's why when you bring up the Kobe Bryant comment, you have a lot of NBA players that support AAU too.
No question.
So his comment was made because of how big he was, but I think they do it to help kids. Thaddeus Young is my best friend from middle school, and I run the program, but he just loved to see giving kids opportunities, give back to his community. So that I feel like Penny loved giving back to the city, and Mike Miller's not from here, but I know he loves giving back to the community too. So it's to help kids to get an opportunity that they had, get them out there, get them exposure, get them, to get to college, give them the best opportunity they can.
Cowboy, can it get nasty when you're battling for a certain player?
I mean, it can't. It'll get nasty, but my thing is, he's Team Thad. I'm Memphis Magic. You got Team Penny. You got M33M.
Right.
All right. We're probably contracted, right? Contract. All right. Those contracts, we have to provide, and if I'm not going, once he get them, to me, he's his.
Right. But before he gets them.
Before he gets them, I mean, we like college. We at the game.
We done been on the front row together looking at the same kid.
We've been side to side looking like, man.
He talked to the mom. I gotta go talk to the dad.
When you gonna talk to your mom? Let me know. I mean, it's competitive. It's competitive. I love it. I like it. It feels like we're on a college level. See, high school can't do that, because they got rules.
Yeah, you locked in.
Yeah, they lock. They got you got to see if he stay in my district and all that. But we don't fight. We just.
There's mutual respect.
Yeah, it's mutual respect.
Now, let me piggyback on what he said.
Sure.
For the most part, it's mutual respect, like he said. I'm the type, if a kid play for one of the 4 teams he just named, I'm bagged off. Because if they were one of them 4 programs, they can get exposure. Now, if you with a smaller program, no disrespect, and you ain't getting no exposure, I would tell the parents in a respectful way, if he come here this weekend, he probably could. But if you with one of them 4 programs, I think you can get it done. And another thing Bubba have on his side, once a kid go to a high school, it's a lot like college. You got to if you transfer, you might have to sit out a year. With us, a kid can get mad in one weekend after my game and play for him the next game. There's no rules, so it's tough for us.
Right.
Like, the kids got to really love you to stay with you on AAU.
Yeah.
Let me say one thing.
We got less than a minute, Bubba.
Okay, if you were a guy that didn't know much about basketball, and you went to an AAU game and you went to a high school game, and you're trying to compare the two, we all want to win, but I think that Their style of play is more to highlight the strengths of the kids. Ours is teamwork more and playing for the name of the school on the jersey. There's a huge difference between what they're trying to do and what we're trying to do. We're lucky enough to, if a kid really does well, he's recognized by AAU programs and all that, but it's more of we're playing for the school, they're playing to get exposure for colleges.
But bottom line is, it can coexist. Gentlemen, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
And don't forget, folks, you can see any of our previous Sports Files offerings by simply going to our website, WKNO.org. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by
Infinity of Memphis has moved to Germantown Road, just half-mile north of Wolf Chase Galleria, and is proud to support WKNO for its quality broadcasting and service to our community. Quality and service? No wonder Infinity of Memphis feels at home on WKNO.